Hi, I'm Ed Lorenz from Oneonta, New York, and this is my 1971 Suzuki TS-185 that I bought brand new, and I'm still riding it.
I find the most interesting things happen with no plan, just exploring. Case in point, I was in a small little area called Oneonta, New York. I came to a fork in the road, and as I pulled up, I saw a motorcycle coming down the road. As he approached closer, I'd realized what I was looking at was a vintage motorcycle, an enduro dirt bike style motorcycle, and a very seasoned looking rider on it. So without further ado, here's the story about a guy that I met in the middle of nowhere and his Suzuki enduro motorcycle.
I'm 71. I must have bought it when I was 17.
Wow, 17.
Yeah.
Can you tell me, how did this motorcycle come into your life?
I was back in high school, and that evening, my father and I went down to Wappingers Falls. We went down after dinner one night to buy the bike, and got all the paperwork done, gave him all my money and stuff, lived happily ever after. Retail price was $599 plus tax. So I try to get my money's worth out of things.
Well, I'd say.
Yeah.
Could you tell us how you got 90,000 miles on this motorcycle?
You know, I used it for basically everything. It was my only transportation that I had. I used it for riding to school. Don't want to go on the school bus anymore. You know, but I also had a job up at a place called the Rhinebeck Aerodrome on weekends, which was from Poughkeepsie, where we were living, probably about 25 miles. So right there I'd put on at least 100 miles a weekend, going back and forth. There would be a lot of times that summer when my friend and I, we'd put over 1,000 miles a week just, you know, screwing around, you know, going here, going there. But I also used it for a lot of trail riding, which we all did back in those days. And, you know, I went to college up in a place called Johnstown, New York, a little bit further north of here, and got hooked up with these guys that sold OSAs, which is why this thing has a lot of OSA parts. But back in those days, I did some motocross with it, believe it or not. Of course, we did a lot of ice racing up there, stud up the tires and go. You know, going to college, all that kind of stuff. And then I always been into a bit of traveling.
Were there any catastrophic failures?
The first catastrophe that I had was at about 25,000 miles up in Thunder Bay, Ontario, which is not a good place to have a catastrophe like that. Basically, the history of the bike in the early years was from 71 till the late 70s. I did a lot of riding with it all through the 70s. Didn't have any problems. I'd go through tires every now and then, but you know, I'd just stop by motorcycle shops and introduce myself and tell them what was going on and ask them if I could rummage through their dumpster and look for old tires. And you know, matter of fact, I put one of the big cruiser bike tires on the front. It had a 19-inch wheel on front, and put that on, and that served me through the rest of the trip. But my first event that I ever did was an observed trials, which was over on the Connecticut-Rhode Island border. And that was probably about 150 miles away. Being young and stupid, you know, it didn't bother me to climb on early Sunday morning and get on I-84 without any traffic back in those days.
Do you have a favorite memory with this bike?
One memorable moment that I do have is that I was on my 1981 trip after college. I was riding into San Francisco. And I had my sleeping bag up here in a big plastic bag, and I kept my Rand McNally map underneath it, folded up so I could see where I was going for that day. And I was on Route 1, heading up from Los Angeles area up to Coast Santa Cruz, blah, blah, blah. And coming into San Francisco, and California Highway Patrol pulled me over. And he was kind of upset with me. He said, "You know how fast you're going on this road?" Well, yeah, I guess about 35. What do you think? "Yeah, I got you clocked at 35 miles an hour. And he was kind of upset with that. "Well, you know, where are you going?" "Well, I'm going into San Francisco, and according to my map," and I showed my map, "well, this is the road." I said, "Well, yeah, you're right, but you're still going too slow." "Well, where are you coming from on this bike?" "Well, I was visiting friends of mine down in Bakersfield." "Bakersfield? You rode this thing from Bakersfield?" And he just couldn't believe that, and he walks around the bike, and he goes, "Well, wait a minute, you got a New York plate on this thing." "Yeah, that's where I'm from." "Well, so how did you get it here?" "Well, I rode it." "What do you mean you rode it?" So I had to go through the whole itinerary of the trip. Wow, that's pretty neat. So where are you going? Well, San Francisco, you know, probably up to this exit here on the map. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go behind you with my lights on to keep cars away from you. You can't go that slow on this road. But if I have my lights on, nobody will bother you, okay? So, you know, it's pretty cool. You know, it's great. So, oh, thank you very much. So he followed me up for a few more miles. I turned off. Hey, thank you. And off we went. So.
Oh, that's great. That's a great story.
Yeah, it is. You know, the 185 was always a nice bike and always enjoyed it. It's also nice if you need to camp out. You can spin into the trees, you know, right off the highway and nobody knows you're there. You can do dirt roads, so it had a lot of advantages to it.
Would you say there's anything that this motorcycle has taught you about life?
You know, when you do a trip, any kind of a trip, it's not so much about getting there, it's about enjoying the trip to get there. You know, that's a large part of it too. So,
can you tell us about your maintenance on the motorcycle?
you know, as long as you take reasonable care of things will last a good long time. Mm-hmm. So, and that's the way I've been with this bike. Is, you know, it's important. It's hard to believe I'm saying this, but it's important to use like good oil in them and to change the gearbox. You know, good injector oil. Change the gear oil on a regular basis. I've always been very religious about doing that every 1,000 miles. Believe it or not, I ran it out of oil. Who would have thought? So, you know, it needed a new upper end on it, and I was busy in those days, and this is 1984, and I did not get around to doing anything about that until the late 90s. Took me another 20, 25 years, I guess. So I got a new upper end on it, and then it sat in the basement of the house, just because I didn't have time to start it to see if it worked. And it sat there about another 25 years. So there's probably, I hope my math is reasonable, but there's probably, what, about 35, maybe 40-year span where the bike was in retirement. In my I didn't ride it. Okay. And then when I retired back in 2020, I had some friends of mine here in town with smaller bikes. And, hey, come on, we gotta go ride and get that thing going. You know? Okay, so I did. So about 2020, we put a new battery in it and had a new upper end, so it was all ready to go. And took off and been riding it ever since.
What type of riding did you do on this motorcycle? Did you race it? And if so, what kind of racing did you do?
One of the big disappointments in my life so far is that this September we have a Moto Giro coming up over in Sturbridge, Massachusetts. But they have some incredible back roads there, you know, dirt roads and these narrow things. They're a lot of fun. And for the first time ever, you know, I've been riding it, but also I have another friend of mine from Maine that he just picked up a 71 TS 125, and have another friend of mine from near Worcester, Massachusetts. He just picked up a 71, actually, 185, and have another friend down in Virginia. He has a 73, 185, and who is entered. The other two guys were all excited until they found out they had a wedding or something else they had to go to, or a running race, a charity running race. I thought we were going to have a TS 185 team, right, the Team TS, and well, half the people couldn't make it. But next time we'll try. So, in the future, we hope to have a TS Suzuki team of these older things.
Have you ever thought about selling it?
Did I ever consider selling it? Well, no. For one thing, look at it. Who would want it? No.
It kind of got high mileage.
Yeah, the mileage is kind of up there, and I always had too much fun with it. And by the time it was in retirement, like I say, who would want it anyway? How would I get rid of it? So I ended up keeping it, and I'm still riding it. So, yeah, I've thought about other bikes, but what would I get? You know, this thing's been a great bike because it can do everything for me. You know, I can use it. It's not a competition bike, you know. It's but I can use it for off-road competition and trail riding and stuff like that.
Do you feel like taking off from a stop and racing and the riding? Have you been aggressive with this bike, or have you treated it pretty fairly? Like a lot of clutch action? Have you gone through clutches, or have you?
Yeah, how have I taken care of this thing? You know, in recent years, yeah, I'll admit I probably do not beat on it like I used to. But certainly through the 70s there, when I was doing a lot of various kinds of competition, you know, you'd be slamming through the gears, you know, blasting through the mud and everything else, and it just kept working. These days, yeah, I do try to use a little bit of sympathy in my shifts and everything else. I actually sometimes try to do preventive maintenance. I think earlier we were talking about this bike blowing up on me up there in Thunder Bay, and having to rebuild the crank in the upper end. And I think before I did my trip after college, when I graduated, we put a new upper end on it, and that was in '81. That probably had about 50,000 miles.
If this old bike could speak, what would it say to you?
Ah!
That's it. Is that that's the answer?
Ah! Yeah. Why me?
If you met a youngster considering getting into motorcycle riding, what advice would you give them?
What I would recommend to someone wanting to get into motorcycling, back in my day, we had a lot of trails and stuff like that, and I think learning how to ride a motorcycle off-road teaches you a lot of reflexes and stuff. The most important thing I think it teaches you is how to fall. It's going to happen, but it teaches you how to be quick and all that kind of stuff, how to take care of your equipment and machinery. And this doesn't look like much, but it's reasonably well cared for. And then when you get out on the road, you just got to watch out for everything.
What is this Suzuki TS185 given to you over the last 55 years?
What this Suzuki 185 has given me since 1971 has been, 55 some years of a lot of fun, a lot of great memories. Going back to high school, taking people for rides on it and everything. Well, mostly the girls, of course. Not that I do much of that anymore. But, then I got into the competition stuff and then the traveling and everything. So, and that's the whole thing about it, is enjoying it and enjoying a life of happy motoring with it. When people in cars, no offense to these fine people, but guilty until proven innocent. They're all out to get you, and keep your eyes open, expect them to do something stupid, because quite often they will. And if you're in a car, you can get away with it. Got a big car around you. But on a motorcycle, a bicycle, whatever, you don't have that luxury. So you got to learn self-preservation on your own and take care of yourself. Know what to expect before it happens. And of course, over the years, meeting you or meeting my friend Stan from England and stuff, or all the other people, the guy that got me into observed trials and everything, these are all wonderful people that I've met, that I've been, maybe I've lost track of them and stuff, but I still remember them, and they've certainly, obviously, have been a big part of my life. So that's one of the nice things about having a lifelong interest in something like this. So, here's to you, many miles ahead, and happy motoring!